So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me on a Friday of your winter break to talk about AI. And we're going to specifically talk about in this session prompt writing and then introduce Gemini and what Gemini is and does for us. But we'll talk a lot about like kind of the basics of AI and what that means for us, and then get into the prompt writing with it. As I kind of mentioned, AI has been one of those things that I kind of was reluctantly pushed into about a year, almost 2 years ago now. One of my friends at Salinas High was like, "Hey, want to join this committee with me and start researching it?" And it's been a really deep dive into the world of AI and what there's a lot of nuances with AI and a lot of things with there, and a lot of implications and a lot of unknowns still with AI. So we are going to talk about all those things. So first off, some session norms. These are the same session norms that I have for all my sessions, but feel free to ask questions. This time is your time. So in this 45-minute session, this is your time to ask questions, to really participate, to like get your whatever you need. Feel free to unmute yourself or put yourself, ask those questions in the chat, because this is your time to learn and to be part of this process with us. Also participate positively, keep open-minded, be respectful and willing to learn. And then if you need extra support, I love coming to school sites. So I would love to meet with you one-on-one. I'd love to be invited to your PLC time, whenever that is, during the Wednesdays, or if you have a pullout day, and then, or even help co-teach. So I would love to visit school sites and to visit you if you need help with whatever you need help with. Again, just some logistical things, and I will just keep repeating this. The sign-in is in the chat, and then also the slides are in the chat as well if you need them. All right. So for today, we're going to apply the parts framework. So we took this how we can effectively write prompts using the parts framework. And then we're also going to be using AI tools such as Google's Gemini, and then we'll be playing some games. So looking at some arts and cultures experiments, and playing some games. And these are games that you actually use with your students as well, because we'll talk about AI with students and how that's a really tricky area. These goals were actually written by Claude. So I have the paid version of Claude, I pay for it. And so my prompt for these learning objectives is I actually downloaded my presentation once I finished it. I downloaded into a PDF and uploaded into Claude and said, write learning goals for a professional PD session for educators based on this presentation. And these, there was other ones that came up with it. These are the two that I liked the most, and actually took these pretty much unchanged. A lot of times I have to heavily modify AI, and these ones I took kind of as it is. So transparency is part of our AI process as well, and making sure that we are citing and being very transparent when we're using AI. So first up, we are going to play. So we're going to take about 5 minutes now, and Google Arts and Culture has some amazing games. They call them experiments, and we are going to play with them. And I love this so much. So if you've been to one of our AI sessions before, you've probably played this one before. But this one is called Musical Canvas. And so with Musical Canvas, if you go to the link that's in the chat or on the site, actually, let me show you guys on this screen. What this does is it's an experiment. So we're going to launch this experiment. You do not need to sign in. It is not collecting any personal data on us. And so for this, we are going to generate music. So I think the prompt that I have is draw your thoughts about the upcoming school year. And you can use the color tools, you can use the spray paint tools, you can do massive spray paints, and take about 5 minutes. There's also some blurring features or like some filters here we can apply. And then once you're ready, you're going to hit generate music, and it's going to create a song based on your drawing. So it's right now it's thinking. It's feeling like a peaceful, relaxing piece, a gentle melody. And there's an art of music. All right, so I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes right now just to play. So take 5 minutes, to play. And as you guys are drawing, I'll tell you a little bit about this. So this, I did have done this in the classroom with students, and I love this as a beginning of the day activity or beginning of the class period activity because it is a great way to kind of like calm the class down, I feel like, to kind of like get their mode going, to really kind of like to kind of talk about their days or their feelings. Sometimes I give them just the option to draw every like whatever they feel, brief draw, or I'll give them like draw about your weekend, draw about how you feel about this week, reflect on the week. Those type of prompts I like to give students with this one. So the color, and actually let me go share the tab again. So the color on the sidebar here is where you can change the color and just kind of pick your color and change it through there. Kind of draw as you want. My internet's lagging slightly. I'm noticing a lag on my end, so I apologize if it's lagging for everybody too. But I'm noticing, I tried to close as many tabs as I could to like prevent lag, but I apologize if it's lagging on my end. And then to clear your canvas for a new drawing, I would just refresh the page and start over. Oh, or there is a clear button. There is a clear button. Sweet. I usually just refresh and start from scratch. Oh, I see. I see the clear button now. Yeah, the undo option is a great tool. We have about a minute left, so if you have not hit to generate your music yet, start finishing up your drawings and generate those music. And if you want to put in the chat what kind of music that it generated for you, was it calm, was it country, was it exciting and upbeat? What kind of music was generated for you? I love we have a lot of upbeat and calm and peaceful music that is happening. So again, this is a great thing that I like to do with my students too. Just kind of start the day, to start each class period. Um, and so to share this tool with students, you just copy that same link. I usually would put that link in Google Classroom. So I would just copy and paste Google Arts and Culture Musical Campus and then put that link in Google Classroom. So it doesn't save anything. So this is just like kind of a introductory, just a fun activity. You wouldn't want to grade this or anything. But this was also a really great way so I would give them the same thing, 5 minutes. And then I would say, okay, nobody press generate music until the 5 minutes is up so that we don't hear like little sounds going off. And then all at once we would generate the music together, and then it would become a little bit of a chaos in my classroom, but I love organized chaos. And then I also had students like share with each other. So talk about your drawing, talk about the music. And this was a really great way to kind of start the day. A lot of times too, kids try to, especially when I gave them just like draw anything, they would try to generate music on their own. So like one kid was trying to draw some album art cover so that it would try to mimic the music. So he was trying to create, like use the images and think about what imagery and colors and whatever could be used to generate certain types of music. So I thought that was great that it got kids thinking about images and imagery and colors and what that means. I also had a kid who got really upset because he got like a country song and he was like, what? Like, I didn't want this. Like, why would I get this? So we talked about the things in his drawing that that might have created that. And so it's also a really great way to get kids to think about images and how images evoke emotion and what feelings they might evoke with. But again, just a really fun way, an easy way to kind of start introducing AI or just to kind of talk about things in the classroom. So as we talk about this, some basics with AI is that there's a couple different types of AI, and one is predictive AI, and we've seen this to be used for a while. So this is like your algorithms, like if you are on Amazon and it's making suggestions for you, or on Netflix and it's like, so you should watch this next. It's making predictions based on your historical data. What we are talking about today and what we just did is generative AI. And so this is where it's creating new content such as text, images, or music based on the interaction. So based on the input that we give it, it's creating something different. It's creating something new. And then we're also going to talk about prompts. So when we talk about AI and prompts in AI, we are talking about that text input that we provide that gives a context and instruction that is going to guide what the AI is going to output. So again, we're going to be talking about those generative AI and the prompts within generative AI. Now, from updates with AI, we have AI is everywhere and it's evolving and we cannot get away from it now. Maybe a year ago, we could still be like, I don't know about AI. I'm going to like leave it behind. But now, like, we really can't get away with it. I just bought a new computer and like Apple has like their Apple AI system integrated within the computers now. And so we're seeing it within Google. We're seeing it in Instagram. If you search on Instagram, you're using Meta AI. If you have Google on your personal account and you go to Google, the first thing that you pop up is going to be like that Google AI within that. So we have AI really is everywhere. And it's something that we really need to be aware of and like the implications for it. And we can go in a whole deep dive of AI and a whole philosophical discussion about AI, but we really can't escape it now. And with that, it is evolving. And I'm not just talking about AI and the technology of AI evolving, because it certainly is, but we also are seeing policies and laws and things evolving with AI. So we now have more and more states are coming out with guidelines and policies regarding AI. We are seeing, especially in the education world, we're seeing policies and guidelines coming out with AI. We're also seeing lawsuits happening in the world of AI. Yes, and many students write their final argumentative essay with AI. So we are seeing it, and we really can't escape it, and there's more and more things that are coming out with it. Now, with some things that we need to be aware of, we are taking a very slow role in this district. We are really doing a lot of research behind AI, and especially in the education world, and we are really, and there's a couple of reasons why. One is we have federal policies that we need to abide by. So we have the FERPA and COPA that we need to abide by, which means that we need to protect students' data, um, and make that a priority at protections, because it is a federal law that we need to protect students' data. So there's a lot of unknowns with AI, and why we've been very slow to roll it out, especially with students, is because we need to make sure that their data is protected. And so there is a lot before, like ChatGPT and a lot of AI companies are saying that they needed to be 18 up to use. Now it's 13 and up, or 13 with parent permission and up. But we are really looking into seeing where that data is going and how that data is being used. So the nature of AI is that they use data to inform and train their AI models, and we cannot do that with student data. So just a background of like our slow rollout in the district, and really making sure that we are being protectful and mindful of that. At the same time, this year, the 2020, or this year, last year, I guess now, it's 2025, but 2024's ed tech guidelines came out with that, and our ed tech plan for the national ed tech plan came out with a potential divide. So they call out access, design, and use divide with our technology. And now AI is like kind of also part of that. So we also know that we can't escape AI. Students are using AI, even if we are not encouraging it or talking about it or not doing that. And so we need to really make sure that we are um, understand the implications of AI and everything like that. So our district, we do have guidelines for AI use. And again, we are being very mindful when we're talking about AI use. And what that means for us, because we want to not only protect students, but protect ourselves with that. There has been some lawsuits that have started to pop up regarding it with school districts and AI. So for example, some parents back in the East Coast sued the school for their students' use of AI in an assignment, because the guidelines were unclear and the teachers' policies were unclear about usage of AI, and that the punishment had more of a negative impact than like what the student was using it for. And so we can go into a whole bunch of the legal realms with that, but we also want to make sure that we are protecting ourselves too with AI usage, and protecting our data. So our guidelines, and they will be updated. We have another update coming out soon with our guidelines that are kind of really reinforcing the ideas that we've been learning and the policies and the guidelines that have been coming out recently. But our current guidelines are, and will continue to be our guidelines, is that we are wanting AI use to focus on literacy, privacy, ethics, and responsibility. That privacy and data security are our number one priority with both students and staff. And that ethical use of AI, we emphasize fairness, equity, and academic integrity. And that our responsible use of AI prioritizes pedagogy over technology. So this is like my soapbox. I am one of the ed techs, and I love technology, but it's all about what skills we want our students to learn first. It's all about what we want to achieve first before we talk about anything else. So with that said, some AI best practices when we do this is we really need to make sure that as you are exploring or as you're testing out AI systems, that we are reading the fine print dish. Now, I don't expect you to go back into the terms of service and read everything of that. We typically don't do that. A lot of us just like agree to terms of service. But especially when we're using technology in front of students, we need to make sure that we are really making sure that we are knowing the terms of students. So we've had some classes that are trying to use AI with the students, but the privacy policies within that, or the terms of service within those, like those AI systems, means that the students need parent permission to use it. And if we don't explicitly have that parent permission, we can't use it. Um, and yes, and Kathleen, you're exactly right. It is this district responsibility, not the teacher, and why we are being super careful about what we are rolling out, especially to students. And so right now, we do not have a district approved AI system to be used with students, like, And when I say AI system, I mean we cannot use like ChatGPT, we cannot use Claude, because those are closed networks. Now we are looking into some networks like Magic School and like using Magic Student with students. So if you are interested in piloting that, please let me know. But this is why we have not had an official district approved system yet, because we are really making sure that we are being careful when we are putting stuff in front of students with it, because it is a district responsibility. But some other AI best practices for your own use too is make sure that you're not using personal identifying information. Like be very careful not to be putting in students' names or even your own personal identifying information with it, because the way that AIs are built and these language models are built is that they large part use data to train their model, so that what you put into it could be used to train that model. So if you're using ChatGPT or using Claude or anything of that, just be aware that what you put into it is being used to train it as well. And we also are making sure that we're using tools that are transparent on how they work. So our recommended tools, we are really looking into how it's being transparent, how data is being used. But just for your own too, when you're using technology, when you're using things out there, not just AI, be mindful of like how things are being used, what data they're collecting. Being mindful of biases and misinformation and reassess often. It is known that AI has some biases in it and has some misinformation. One of my favorite sessions on AI that I attended said that AI is meant to please you, that it is a people pleaser. So it is going to say things to please you. So even if it's wrong, it's going to say it because it thinks that's what you want it to, like that's what you want to hear. And so we really need to make sure that we are keeping humans in the loop, that we are really reassessing the information that we're getting, and that we have a clear purpose within using the tool. So the national guidelines has this phrase of keeping humans in the loop, and every step of the way of where we're using AI, we need to make sure that humans' eyes are seeing it, is assessing it, is modifying it as needed as we're using AI. So, and again, I have this, if you've been to one of my sessions before, you probably have seen this before. I mentioned it yesterday too. But again, whenever we're using technology, that technology is the tool and not the learning outcome. So really thinking about how we're using not just AI, but any tech that we're using, that we're looking at the skills and not the system necessarily. All right, so I always like to put that as a kind of a background and kind of like introduce that, because I really want to kind of be transparent in our AI usage and like how we're using things, and really be mindful of how we're using technology, especially in today's world, because the terms of service and just what the data that tech companies are collecting, we really just need to be mindful of. And really need to make sure that what we're using is transparent. And if you guys have any questions at all of any tech program or AI or not, please reach out to us, and like reach out to your site ed techs, reach out to us, just so we can double check if you want another eyes on a tech system with it, because the data collection of companies can definitely be a little like alarming sometimes. And so we really want to make sure. So we want to encourage exploration, we want to encourage like innovation, but just make sure that we're being mindful of those best practices with it. All right, so with that said, AI is a tool that we can use, and so AI is really great for lots of different things, including writing lesson plans, of helping us, as Steve mentioned in the Cami session or in his Cami Slam, about using it to help create like student exemplars. We can use AI for lots and lots of different things. I use it almost daily to help me like be a thought partner with it. And one of the best ways that we can use AI is to make sure that we are writing effective prompts. So Google calls out the 5-part process for prompt writing, which in a nutshell is parts. So it stands for persona, aim, recipients, theme, and structure. So who are you? What do you want to achieve? Who is the output for? And what style or tone should the AI use? and what format do you want the output in? And so the better we can be at prompt writing, the better outputs that we get, the better that we can actually fight some of these biases that the AI system will naturally have. And we can do that. So for example, we have this prompt here, which we have, and so we can see all of the parts that are outlined. So the persona, I am a 10th grade history teacher at a high school in California. Our aim is to write a 15-minute lesson plan for my class about the Gettysburg Address and its effects it had on the Civil War. Includes 2 structured student talk activities and provide the lesson plan as a table with time markers for each activity. So again, being very specific on our who we are, what our aim is, who this is going to be for, our theme, and our structure. And then yesterday, I actually put this into Gemini, and I was like, I needed some ideas. So I said, my prompt was to write some exemplar prompts for an AI program using the parts. And I actually really liked how it broke this down. So again, some other prompt writing examples. We have your debate coach to encourage thoughtful discussion on a controversial topic for high school students in a debate club. We want our tone to be natural, objective, and challenging. And our structure can be like the format that you want it. So if you want a lesson plan in a table format, but we can also do this in like how we want it to be presented. So present a debatable statement or question, provide arguments for both sides of the issue, encourage students to consider the ethical implications, and challenge students to form their own questions. So an example that an AI system would come up with would be like, debate team, let's tackle hot topic. Should artificial intelligence be used to making decisions in the criminal justice system? And so we can get this a prompt, we can kind of go on to it like this. Another example that I got from Gemini 2, and again, thinking about how the structure can not just be like how you want it to physically come out, but thinking about presenting unique scenarios or conflicts, to suggest a few possible character types to include, to offer prompts to stimulate creativity, and to encourage students to experiment with different narrative perspectives. So for example, for this one, you are a creative writing instructor. You want to generate ideas for a short story. This is for middle school students, and you want this to be imaginative and encouraging, enthusiastic. And so the prompt that it gives us with here is, imagine a world that gets turned upside down where gravity suddenly flips. How would you navigate this topsy-turvy world? And so AI can be really, really great with it. Now, why is it so important to be so specific in our prompt writing? Here's some examples. So this was some examples that I did. So for level 1, just very basic prompt writing, I just put it in the teacher, and then I put it into Adobe Firefly and to Crayon. And so we have some examples of teachers. Adobe Firefly, all the teachers are male in here. And then Crayon, I think they're all female teachers here. Level 2 is realist. I just gave it a little bit more. So a realistic female teacher sitting at a desk. For some reason, Crayon made them all like monkeys. I'm not sure why, or made them all animals. I guess they're not all monkeys. I think that's a cat. But for some reason, that's what it came out with. We're Adobe Firefly. Again, we have kind of a little bit more diversity here. But these animalistic teachers here. And then level 3, I put a realistic female teacher with blonde hair and black glasses sitting at a desk grading papers with a concentrated, thoughtful look. And here we're getting a very, very specific output with this that we can use. So the more specific that we are, the more that it's likely to produce exactly what you want, and we can kind of fight those biases within the system as well. Some examples that I did with Claude, looking at, yeah, the copy through glasses. Awesome, Sonia. I put black glasses because I usually wear my black glasses, but with my kids, I'm blaming this on my kids. They're lost somewhere, and so I have to go with these glasses now too. But so looking at this example, it's Claude. I put create a lesson plan about the Gettysburg Address, and this lesson plan was good. It was for 8th to 12th graders. They were going to be analyzing the historical context of it, it was still pretty much a good lesson that I could draw ideas from. But then I gave it a little bit more. So I said, I'm a 10th grade history teacher at a high school in California. Write a 15-minute lesson plan that will help my students excel at reading primary sources that includes 2 structured student talk activities. The target audience are 10th grade history, social studies students with some experience in reading primary docs. This lesson should be focused around the Gettysburg Address and the effects it had on the Civil War. Structure the lesson in a table. I wrote everything that I wanted to do, and it gave me a very, very detailed lesson with the suggested time frames and differentiation strategies. I'm really big into structured student talk, so having those are really, really important. And I think now with this lesson plan too, I would probably also heavily modify it. By my nature, I heavily modify almost everything, but especially with AI, I take and pick and choose pieces that I like and use it. So the way that I use AI is mostly as a thought partner. I use it to give me ideas, especially when it's like Sunday night and I need something for Monday morning, but I am exhausted from the weekend. I just can't think of anything. Or if it's Thursday night and I need something for Friday and I just cannot think anymore. I've been in meetings after meetings and I just need something to get my thought process going and get my wheels circling. I cannot start from scratch. That's when I go to AI and I put in what exactly I'm looking for to get those ideas rolling. So I highly recommend using AI as that thought partner versus like that final product because we have that with it. So to practice that a little bit, we are going to play again. So let me open up here and I will put it in the chat. So this is another another Google Arts and Experiment game. But for this game, we are going to say what we see. So we're going to start with level 1. And what you are going to do is you're given a painting or a drawing or some sort of art thing, and you need to try to describe it. So we're going to begin here. So, oh, this one is the hardest one. So we're going to do an ombre colors starting with teal at the top and pink at the bottom. And we are going to try to be descriptive and write what we see for the picture. And here it's generating. Oh, it didn't like my answer. I've never had that before. All right. So, but basically we're going to try and it's going to try to match up and recreate what you are putting in there. So go ahead, take a couple minutes. We'll take about 3 minutes just to kind of play around with this. Let me put our 3 minutes just to play around with this. My timer on. Let's see if I can get it. As you can, if you were watching the screen of that, I totally did not pass it. I usually pass that one. That one's the most difficult one though. But hopefully you guys got an easier one. All right, and if you have your percentages or if you've been playing around it, you can feel free to share that percentage of matching in the chat or what drawing you got with it.
It doesn't really like pay attention to my description. I said a light pink salmon color that fades to a, light green olive hinted color, and it gave me like a bright pink with I don't know what else. I was like, okay.
I know that image is the hardest one. Like that is the hardest one out of all of them. Dude, we have some good matches here.
Spectrum from this color to that, or that changes. I don't
know. The word ombre. Okay, maybe I was misspelling. I think I might have been misspelling it. Ombre. I should know that. It's like so similar to my name.
That's like hair terminology.
I know.
Hombre.
Hombre.
Like in Spanish, it means I'm hungry. Forgot the H. Hombre.
Yeah, just a couple minutes. Okay. All right.
Fun activity.
I know. So this is a great one too, because it is really good about the descriptions. Now I have played with this one. We can play with students in class. It's not collecting their data. We don't have to have them sign in. And what they use is they use the same images over and over again. So the horse one is seeing that pink and green square is like my nemesis now. Like I've seen that one a lot. But they have the same, they use a small collection of images that they're using for it. But I love using this one students too, because when it gets them thinking about prompt writing, even though we're not putting AI systems in front of them, we know that students are blindly using AI to write their essays. And I want them to think a little bit like, hey, you can't just put in a prompt or put in the thing and then expect it to do what you want. I want them to pause a little bit if we know they're going to be like using it. And then two, this is great for our language learners because they're using vocabulary, they're using things like that. One of the see what you say images is a bowl of ramen. And one of my students put in a bowl of noodles and like put that in. All right, a bowl of noodles. Well, that's probably going to get you like an Italian dish versus like a ramen dish. So like he was like, why does it like, how come it doesn't look like this? I'm like, well, be more specific. As an English teacher, I'm constantly telling my students to really describe for your readers what you're talking about. This is a way that we can show them. And I'd be like, see, this is what I mean. What you are writing is not what I'm picturing. And this is why. So this is something that we can also play with students and get them thinking about language and like thinking about how to do this, but also showcasing that our prompt writing, like prompt is a very, very specific art form. And to really get them to pause when they're doing that. And for us to kind of practice, like making sure that we are doing it correctly. All right, so now we're going to get into Google Gemini. Just briefly, Google Gemini, the way that we have it for our district is pretty much like ChatGPT and how we can use it like ChatGPT. But Google does say that we're in a Gemini era, so we're going to watch this for a minute.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is...
What does this remind you of?
Schrodinger's cat.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. When all of these tools come together, it's a powerful combination.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's an entire suite of different kind of possibilities.
Hi, I'm Gemini.
What neighborhood do you think I'm in?
This appears to be the King's Cross area of London.
Together, we're creating a new era.
All right. So I just also just like that video because I feel like I get pumped up watching it. It's like, yeah. And I know that's totally what they're going for. But with this Google Gemini, we do have Gemini for our district. So this is if you go to gemini.google.com. Now this we do have kind of like the basic education version of Google Gemini. And I just realized I usually link up my stuff here, but I'll put it here. But we have, and if you have a personal Gmail account, if you go onto your personal Gmail account, you're probably going to see Gemini everywhere. You're going to see it when you Google something. You're going to see it in Google Docs. You're going to see it in your email. It pops everywhere in your personal account. Right now, for our basic educator account, we go to gemini.google.com and we're going to use it like ChatGPT or how we would go to like one of those. And the reason that we have opened this up and we had to wait, it just got opened up, I think, in October for everybody, is because, again, we are really making sure we're taking our data and privacy concerns really seriously. And so this is a close to our district network. So what you are putting into here is not going to feed the greater Gemini network, which is great and amazing, especially for us. So we can know that this is kind of like a safe, secure, safe and secure. I totally like lost my train of thought, but it's safe and secure AI system to use because it is kind of closed within our district. So you can take a minute and go ahead and play around with Gemini. Actually, let me show you google.com. So Gemini is going to work very, very similarly to how ChatGPT works. So we can enter a prompt for Gemini. So we can say, write a song about turtles. Now, I'm going against everything I just told you about writing very specific prompts, but we can do with it. And it's going to give me an output here. So here it's going to give me a very silly song about turtles as how I have it in here. It also, we have our recent ones. So I had this imaginary imagery lesson plan that I had in the video for the SLAM presentation. And so I can go back to it and I can see, all right, where I have it. We also have Gemini's self-praise here, again, where I used in the SLAM and where I have it here. And we have like just those different AI prompts. So Gemini works very similar to ChatGPT, where you're going to give it an input and give it an output with it. So take a couple, like 2 minutes right now before we go on break to kind of explore, write in a prompt. You can use an example, one of the example prompts that I gave, or just think about what you have. You can ask about plans for the weekend, but play around with Gemini for about 2 minutes.
I just asked it to generate a set of examples of linear equations that have errors for students to analyze the mistakes.
Yeah.
There's my list.
Yeah.
I just need to put them in like size or whatever and then hide the other ones. One says this is the solution.
Yeah. I
short activity a kid kind of, have the kids pick up or do little strips and then have them, explain or come and present. I don't know.
I love using AI in that way, where like I purposely have it for count, have it for, or like for mistakes, because I think that's one of the best ways we can use it for, is having students reanalyze stuff. I know one of the sessions I've gone to, one of my favorite sessions on AI, and who I like follow now, is an ELA teacher, and she purposely has AI write bad essays. And if one of her, instead of having students create an essay from scratch, she has them rewrite the bad essay and fact check it and put it. And she said the students actually hate that more because they it takes a lot more work for them to think and revise and analyze like that. And Kathleen, no, students are not on Gemini. Is not for students yet. Again, we are looking at systems for students, but we do not have an approved system for students yet with AI. So this is just for our usage. If we want to use this in the classroom, I would think the way Sonia was just talking about, where we create the content in the AI program, cut it out, use it in that way, and then have students analyze that way. But as far as students actually using it, we do not have an approved system yet. If you guys are interested in, like, I want to start piloting some stuff. So if you guys are interested in being part of that pilots or upcoming pilots, please let me know that you're just interested, because I would love that. With that said, it is break time. So welcome. We are going to get started again. Welcome back, everybody. I put the sign in into the chat. Again, make sure we sign in for each session. But we're going to play again. And this time we are going to play together. So this is going to be a little weird. I'll be the one to admit this, but this is my favorite way to play this with students. Again, all of these games I played with students, they do not take any of our data. They are not using it for, like, kids aren't putting in their private information. That's why we can play these with it. And they're pretty controlled games. So with this one, it's called Odd One Out. So what's this one is, and how I play this in the class is how exactly I'm going to play it here. It's going to be a little messy. That's okay. I love messy classrooms sometimes. But what this is we have to find the AI generated image. So I'm going to need you guys to get, like, on the chat and ready, because we're going to see 3 or 4 different artworks here. And you have to guess which one is the AI image. The other ones are actually art pieces, so they can be found in a museum somewhere, which I also love because it gives kids looking at art. So we're going to go ahead and play. So in the chat, I'm going to just put in your 1, 2, 3, or 4. Put in your guess of which one you think is the AI image. All right, so we'll have 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which one do you think it is? And I have to click next. Oh no, which? That's not what up. All right, and so we have our generated images here. Now, again, what I really like about this too is the rest of these are actual real art pieces that can be found in art galleries. So it also gets kids looking at art pieces and really getting that evaluated eye with it. I'll play again. Yeah, we'll watch out. And we have whatever I would call that, like, I'm not sure what that is, but that looks like a jackalope. But I think that's my Arizona, like, talking. Jackalopes right there. Like, but again, we can then have kids, like, looking at the real pieces, analyzing it, and it is hard. It is really hard. And as AI gets better and better and better too, it's going to get harder and harder and harder with it. We'll play it one more time. And the game was over. All right. That's it. So again, we can play this with students. I actually played it just like I did here with the students. Students would shout out or put on, like, fingers, like, what they would think it is. And it was just a really great way to really have kids starting to evaluate things and then introduce them to art as well. So really kind of see through that. Now, we really need to, I like this activity too. For us, it's just a fun way to kind of introduce things and to kind of get the class started. With it. So I would play this usually at the beginning of class just for fun. We would just play it to kind of get the kids focused, get together, and just start talking about these things. The other thing too is if you have kids play this on their own, you can actually learn more. I am a huge fan of Google Arts and Culture. So you can play around with it and kind of go through it more. With that, before I give you guys up for the slam, there's one more thing that I want to show you guys with the slam, because could be one option that you play with, especially if you're a little bit more familiar with AI, and that is Notebook LM, which is part of Google. Let me sign into it. Okay. So I'm signing into it. So Notebook LM is a way, and again, this is not for students, this would be for us, but this could be a really great I really like this, and it's been one of my favorite things to be playing around with. But what Notebook LM does is it creates like systems. So we just went to a conference in December about learning forward. So I actually took all of my notes from that conference and the slides from that conference. And now what it does is it creates this like closed system. So when it's answering me, it's only using the sources that I provided it. And it is creating, I can now interact with it. So I could say, what are the top priorities in education? Based on these sources, what are these top priorities in education? And now I can interact with it. So I can actually have discussions with it. The internet seems to be a little slow, so it's taking a little bit, but it's giving me, and now it can give me a whole list, and I can create notes, and I can create this and kind of interact with it. So especially if you're going back to school, this is a great way of where we can kind of put in our information into our sources. The other thing that it does is that it can actually create a podcast. And this is the mind-blowing part, is it can create a podcast based on these sources. This is going to take a couple minutes, but I've loaded a couple of them. So once it's done loading, I can show you guys once you guys are working, but it will create a podcast based on my sources. And how I think we can use this in the classroom is that if you have text, especially if you're a social science teacher, if you a science teacher, if you are whatever, English teacher, take the primary sources that you're having students read in class, put them together, and now you can create like a study guide. So you can create a study guide based on those notes and those resources. This is the podcast, so we'll listen to just a minute of it.
Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today into the world of education.
Sounds exciting.
It is, especially with the resources you sent our way for this deep dive. We've got presentation slides about responsive curriculum design, a guide all about neurodiversity,
And ways to help literacy skills across different subjects.
Right, got it. And there's even more.
So it is crazy to me that this is a 2-person podcast that it creates in a couple minutes. Mind blowing. But this is a really great way. Like, I put together these sources. Now I have a podcast that I can listen to in the car, I can listen to whatever. Again, we are not promoting this for students, but what I think we can still use this, I would use this for my classroom by putting in those primary sources, putting it together, create that study guide for my students. So it could create that study guide for it. I would have them create that podcast and then upload it to Google Classroom, like download it and upload it to Google Classroom for students to look at, listen to. And one thing, when we talk about keeping humans in the loop, we know that AI makes mistakes. And Sonia, going back to your point of having it purposely make mistakes, there were some of the podcasts I was playing around with this a lot when we was at the conference and like playing with it. And sometimes it got information wrong. It quoted the wrong person or it did something like that, which for students, I think would be awesome activity of having the podcast and say, there are inaccuracies in here. Find the inaccuracies and cite your source of why that's inaccurate. Or having it listen to that, catch the mistake, do that stuff. So I think even with those AI accuracies, again, we should not take anything that AI gives us as like gospel truth. We need to make sure that we are that we are keeping humans in the loop. And so I think we can also bring students into that by creating this podcast or creating material and then having them catch the mistakes and having them having to rewrite stuff with it. So I just wanted to show you that if you wanted to explore Notebook LM and kind of start playing around with that, because this was like a mind-blowing thing. I was in the car, we were driving to Paso Robles with my husband, and I was like, I don't think I told you how excited I am about this. And I actually, like, in the car to Paso Robles, was playing around with it and created a podcast for him and like made him listen to it with me. So like, yeah, and he's not in education, so he has to just go along with me. But like, I just wanted to showcase that too as something that as an option that we can play around with. So, but with that, it is sandbox time. So we have about a half an hour right now of where you guys can experiment with different things. So try Gemini, create that lesson plan or modify existing lesson plans, give it specific strategies to use within it. Play with Google Arts and Culture. So all of those games, there's a couple of other AI experiments that they have, plus other experiments, those games that they have. Plus, Google Arts and Culture is so amazing. You can actually visit art museums, have students look at artwork, analyze different themes of artwork too. It's a really cool website in general. And then if we didn't talk about AI images, but if you are wanting to play around with AI images too, there's some recommended AI image generators that you can play around with, including Canva. So there's Canva that we can use and play around with too. So if you guys have any questions, all as you guys are working and doing your sandbox time, please feel free to unmute, ask in chat. But this is your time to experiment, play, create as you are working with these things.